like just one layer. I don't like it stacked because it's a consistency thing. I'd rather have more B and L than the T is just sort of like just for the tang.
Sandra Bullock, the woman whose smile once lit up cinema screens around the world, has lived a life filled with both dazzling triumphs and unimaginable sorrow. At 61, she stands not just as a Hollywood legend, but as a survivor of heartbreaks that would shatter most souls. Behind her radiant poise lies a history written in resilience, loss, and quiet courage. Born on July 26, 1964, in Arlington, Virginia, Sandra Annette Bullock came into a world of music and discipline. Her father, John Bullock, an American vocal coach, carried a soldier's precision. Her mother, Helga Meyer, a German opera singer, filled the home with arias that reached the ceiling. Between strict rehearsals and constant travel, Sandra's childhood was shaped by both art and restlessness. From the age of 5, she performed alongside her mother on opera stages across Europe, standing behind velvet curtains, whispering lines before the music began. She learned early that applause was fleeting, and that perfection came at a cost. Her earliest memories were not of playgrounds or friends, but of stage lights and long train rides between cities. By the time she was 10, Sandra had lived in Nuremberg, Vienna, and countless small towns scattered across Germany. She grew used to the constant packing, the shifting accents, the loneliness that crept in every time she said goodbye. Those experiences built the empathy that later made her one of Hollywood's most believable performers. When the family finally returned to the United States, Sandra found herself a stranger in her own country. Her German accent and plain clothes made her an easy target for teasing. In school hallways, laughter echoed, not with her, but at her. Yet every cruel word hardened her resolve and gave her the quiet strength that would later define her. She often stood alone at recess, watching others from a distance. That isolation, painful as it was, taught her to see people differently, to recognize hurt behind smiles and fear behind pride. The empathy born in those lonely corners of childhood would one day allow her to inhabit characters with astonishing emotional depth. In college, Sandra studied drama at East Carolina University, but New York City, with its intoxicating promise of theater and film, called her name before she could finish her degree. She packed a few clothes, borrowed money, and stepped off a bus in Manhattan, armed with nothing but determination and a dream that refused to die. New York was brutal. Days were spent running from audition to audition, facing rejection after rejection. Nights were filled with cheap meals and endless worry about rent. She worked as a bartender, waitress, and coat check girl, scraping by in a cramped apartment with no heat. Yet through exhaustion, she kept rehearsing lines in front of a mirror. Her first roles came in small productions and forgotten films, projects that faded into obscurity. Each time a film failed, she felt a piece of her confidence slip away. But rather than quit, Sandra treated every disappointment like a lesson. Rejection became her teacher, shaping her into someone unbreakable. Then, in 1993, her persistence paid off. She landed a small role in Demolition Man, starring alongside Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. It wasn't the role of a lifetime, but it opened the door that had been closed for years. 1 year later, that door burst open completely with Speed. Speed changed everything. Playing Annie Porter, the brave bus driver racing against time, Sandra radiated authenticity. Her chemistry with Keanu Reeves was undeniable, and audiences fell in love with her warmth and wit. Overnight, the struggling waitress became a household name, her face known across the globe. The success was staggering. Speed grossed over $350 million worldwide, making her one of the most sought-after actresses in Hollywood. The girl who once whispered lines in a freezing apartment was now walking red carpets. Yet behind every smile was a memory of those nights spent hungry, lonely, and determined to make it. With While You Were Sleeping in 1995, Sandra proved she could do more than action. She embodied kindness, vulnerability, and humor, earning the title of America's sweetheart. But while the world adored her charm, Sandra was quietly building something more powerful: independence. She founded Fortis Films, ensuring she had creative control over her future. Her production company became her declaration of freedom. Through it, she produced hits like Hope Floats, Miss Congeniality, and 2 Weeks' Notice. These films didn't just showcase her versatility, they revealed a woman who refused to be boxed in. Yet, as always in Hollywood, the higher one climbs, the more fragile the balance becomes. When Speed 2, Cruise Control failed at the box office, critics pounced. Sandra took the blame with grace, joking about it in interviews, but privately, it stung. She had agreed to the sequel only to fund Hope Floats, a project that touched her deeply. Her willingness to face ridicule for something she believed in showed her true grit. In 2010, after 2 decades of struggle and stardom, Sandra stood on the Oscar stage, clutching the golden statue for her role in The Blind Side. It was her crowning moment, the culmination of years of perseverance. Yet, fate can be cruel. Just 10 days later, her marriage collapsed under the weight of betrayal. Her husband, Jesse James, had been unfaithful. What should have been the happiest time of her life turned into devastation. The same press that had celebrated her victory now dissected her heartbreak. Behind the flawless smile and designer gown was a woman trying desperately not to crumble. But there was something the world didn't know. Just weeks before the scandal broke, Sandra had quietly adopted a baby boy named Louis from New Orleans. In her Oscar purse that night, she carried his tiny socks, a secret symbol of hope. When her marriage ended, she poured all her love into her son. As tabloids screamed betrayal, Sandra chose silence. She didn't seek revenge or sympathy. She retreated into motherhood, finding strength in caring for Louis. While the world gossiped, she rocked her baby to sleep, learning that true power often lies in restraint and unconditional love. In the years that followed, Sandra transformed pain into purpose. She re-emerged on screen stronger than ever, delivering unforgettable performances in Gravity and Bird Box. Each role carried the weight of her experiences, characters who endured isolation, fear, and survival. Art had become her way of healing. Then, in 2014, her life took a terrifying turn. One night, she woke to find a stranger inside her Los Angeles home. Alone, she hid in a closet and whispered to 911, her voice shaking with fear. The intruder, obsessed with her, had been stalking her for days. That night changed her forever. Although the man was arrested, the fear lingered. For months, Sandra couldn't sleep through the night. Every creak, every shadow sent waves of panic through her. She began therapy to reclaim her peace, determined not to let fear steal her son's sense of safety. Even in trauma, she chose strength over surrender. A year later, fate brought someone new into her life. At Louis' 5th birthday party, Sandra met photographer Brian Randall. He was kind, patient, and grounded, qualities that soothed her weary heart. Their connection was immediate and real. For the first time in years, Sandra allowed herself to believe in love again. Together, they built a family. Sandra adopted a little girl named Layla, and Brian embraced both children as his own. Their home was filled with laughter, bedtime stories, and small moments of peace. It wasn't about red carpets or fame anymore. It was about love, the kind that healed instead of hurt. Though they never married, their bond was unshakable. To the outside world, Sandra had finally found her happy ending. She rarely appeared in public, choosing quiet weekends and school drop-offs over film premieres. For once, life felt balanced, tender, and real. But in 2020, another cruel twist arrived. Brian was diagnosed with ALS, a disease that slowly strips away movement and strength while leaving the mind tragically aware. Sandra and Brian decided to keep his condition private, protecting their children from the weight of impending loss. For 3 years, she devoted herself completely to his care. Hollywood offers disappeared, and she didn't mind. Her world became smaller, focused on comfort, on presence, on love. Every morning she cooked his favorite breakfast. Every night she whispered words of gratitude as she helped him rest. She learned to use medical equipment, to spoon-feed him with patience, to smile when the pain in her chest felt unbearable. Their home became both sanctuary and battleground. For Sandra, acting had always been about emotion, but this was real, the purest expression of love she'd ever given. When Brian passed away on August 5th, 2023, Sandra's world fell silent. He was 57. She held his hand until the end, surrounded by their children. There were no cameras, no headlines, just the unbearable stillness of goodbye. Her grief was private, deep, and all-consuming. The loss of Brian was the cruelest heartbreak of her life. For years, he had been her refuge from chaos, the man who saw her not as a celebrity but as a woman. His death left her house echoing with memories, and yet she found the strength to keep going, for Louis and Layla, and for him. But the world, as always, can be merciless. Just days after Brian's death, a controversy erupted surrounding The Blind Side. The real-life subject of the film sued the family who inspired it, and somehow, Sandra's name was dragged into the chaos. She was blamed for things she had nothing to do with. Online voices demanded she return her Oscar. The cruelty was staggering. A woman in mourning, fresh from burying the love of her life, was attacked for a movie role she played over a decade earlier. But Sandra stayed silent, choosing grace over outrage. She knew dignity was its own form of defiance. Through unbearable loss and public scrutiny, she remained grounded in what mattered most: her children. She focused on their happiness, shielding them from noise and negativity. Each day, she reminded herself that love, not fame, was the only thing that truly endures. Today, Sandra Bullock lives a quieter life. Her days are filled with ordinary joys: school projects, cooking breakfast, evening walks. She owns several homes, each one a sanctuary built from decades of hard work. From Malibu's serene coastlines to her Georgia island retreat, she has carved out spaces of peace. Her net worth may exceed $200 million, but she measures wealth in moments, not money. A smile from her children, a photograph of Brian on the nightstand, a sunrise that reminds her of second chances. These are the treasures she holds closest to her heart. After The Lost City in 2022, Sandra announced a pause from acting. True to her word, she stepped away completely. Her production company continues quietly, but for now, she's focused on healing and being present. Hollywood can wait, her family cannot. She practices meditation and keeps a disciplined routine: cycling, Pilates, reading, long walks by the ocean. Friends describe her as calm yet luminous, someone who has made peace with pain. When she smiles now, it carries the wisdom of someone who has survived everything life could throw at her. She still keeps Brian's memory alive for the children. His photographs hang in the hallway. On birthdays, they light candles and share stories, ensuring his spirit remains part of their home. In her silence, she has found a sacred form of remembrance that keeps love eternal. Sandra Bullock's story is no longer about fame or awards. It is about endurance, grace, and choosing kindness, even when the world is unkind. Her life reminds us that strength doesn't always roar. It often whispers, "I'll keep going." Her tragedy has become her testament. At 61, she carries scars that will never fade, but also a light that refuses to dim. She has faced betrayal, intrusion, illness, and loss, yet she still stands tall, guided by compassion. The woman who once raced against time on a runaway bus now moves at her own gentle pace, unhurried and whole. Sandra Bullock is no longer just America's sweetheart. She is something far greater, a symbol of endurance, a portrait of a mother's love, and proof that even in the face of devastating tragedy, the human spirit can rise again, graceful and undefeated. So when we look at Sandra today, we don't just see an actress. We see a survivor who turned heartbreak into hope, a woman who, despite everything, still chooses love. And in her quiet strength, she reminds us that true beauty isn't found in perfection, but in perseverance. Sandra Bullock's story will echo far beyond Hollywood, the story of a woman who lived, lost, loved, and kept her light burning through it all. Even now, years after stepping away from the spotlight, Sandra Bullock's presence continues to radiate through the world she once dominated. Her name carries not just the weight of fame, but the quiet legacy of integrity. She has shown that it's possible to walk away at the peak of success and still be remembered not for scandal, but for grace. Those who know her privately say she has found a deeper kind of peace. She spends mornings tending to her garden, the same hands that once held Oscars now gently pruning flowers. It's symbolic: life, beauty, and impermanence growing side by side. She finds comfort in the earth, in watching something fragile bloom again. Her children, Louis and Layla, are her greatest source of joy. She speaks rarely about them, preferring to protect their privacy. But close friends say her entire world revolves around their happiness. Every milestone, every laugh, every bedtime story feels like a victory over all the pain she endured. Sometimes she takes them traveling to places that shaped her own journey. New Orleans, where she first became a mother. Austin, where she lived quietly for years. Germany, to show them where their grandmother once sang. Through these trips, she teaches them not to fear the world, but to see its wonder. She tells them that pain is a teacher and love is the lesson, that forgiveness isn't weakness, but strength. These are the values that anchor her days now. No longer defined by scripts or awards, Sandra lives by her own writing, the daily story of choosing peace over pressure, compassion over chaos. Friends say she still laughs the same way she did decades ago, loud, sincere, infectious. Her humor, that spark that made audiences fall in love with her, remains untouched. She can make anyone feel seen, even in a crowded room. That, perhaps, is her greatest gift: human connection. Hollywood still calls, of course. Studios send scripts, hoping to tempt her back. But for now, she says no. Acting will always be a part of her, but her priorities have changed. She once chased success, now she chases meaning. She understands that fame fades, but legacy, true legacy, comes from love. In interviews, when asked about returning to film, she smiles and says, maybe one day, yet her eyes tell another story, one of a woman content to live in the quiet chapters of her life. She's earned the right to rest, to breathe without expectation, to heal without spotlight. Her close friends describe her as fiercely loyal and deeply spiritual. She believes in energy, in the unseen threads that connect all living things. When she speaks of Brian, she says she still feels him near. He's around, she told a friend once, just in a different way. It's not grief anymore, it's gratitude. She keeps his memory alive not through sorrow, but through ritual. The family still celebrates his birthday with his favorite meal. She plays the songs he loved, sometimes humming them softly while cooking. It's her way of reminding the children that love doesn't end. It transforms. As for her own legacy, Sandra doesn't dwell on awards or fame. She talks about kindness instead, the small gestures people remember long after the cameras stop rolling. The makeup artist she once comforted during a panic attack, the crew member she surprised with tuition money for their child. To her, that's what endures. There's a quiet rumor among those who know her best that she's been writing journals, reflections, maybe even a memoir. Not for publication, at least not yet. She writes for herself, for healing. Each page a confession, a letter to her past selves, forgiving the girl who doubted, the woman who hurt, the mother who tried her best. At 61, Sandra has learned that healing isn't a finish line but a journey. Some days are filled with laughter, others with silence. She allows both. She no longer hides from her emotions, no longer performs strength. Instead, she lives it, honestly and unfiltered. Her eyes still hold that familiar warmth that drew audiences in for decades. But now, behind them, there's a depth shaped by love, loss, and survival. The sparkle is different. Less Hollywood glamour, more human truth. It's the kind of beauty that only time and tragedy can create. The world often forgets that even icons are fragile. But Sandra's story reminds us that resilience is not about avoiding pain. It's about facing it and choosing to live again anyway. She has become living proof that heartbreak doesn't define us. How we rise afterward does. She still keeps a small shelf of mementos, an old speed script, her Oscar, a photo of Brian, a handmade card from her kids. Together they tell her life story. The dream, the struggle, the triumph, the love, the loss, and the rebirth. A museum of moments, private and sacred. Though her life has been marked by sorrow, it has also been graced with extraordinary beauty. Every heartbreak led her to a deeper understanding of herself. Every loss reminded her how precious time truly is. In a world obsessed with fame, Sandra found fulfillment in something far rarer: authenticity. When fans see her now, walking quietly through a farmer's market or helping her kids carry groceries, they often hesitate to approach. There's something almost reverent about her presence. She radiates calm, as though she's learned the secret that so many chase all their lives. Peace isn't found in the noise, but in the stillness. Every once in a while, she watches her old films, not out of vanity, but reflection. She smiles at the younger woman on screen, the one who didn't yet know how strong she would have to become. She whispers a silent thank you to her past self for never giving up. For all the tragedy she has endured, Sandra Bullock remains one of the most beloved figures in entertainment. Her fans never turned away because they saw in her something genuine, someone who stumbled, fell, and got back up again, someone real in a world that often isn't. Hollywood may eventually forget its stars, but it will not forget Sandra Bullock. Her light is too sincere, her story too human. She showed millions that you can lose everything: love, fame, certainty, and still find yourself again, softer but stronger. Those who cross her path describe a woman unguarded yet grounded. She listens more than she speaks, laughs easily, and treats strangers with the same warmth she offers friends. In a city built on illusion, Sandra remains defiantly real. That perhaps is her greatest legacy of all. Late at night, when the world sleeps, she sometimes steps onto her balcony and looks at the stars. She once said they remind her of movie sets, tiny sparks of light burning against endless dark. But now, she sees them differently. Each one, she believes, represents someone we've loved and lost. And somewhere up there, she imagines, Brian's light still shines. maybe dimmer, maybe distant, but never gone. She whispers goodnight, thanks him for the years they shared, and goes back inside, heart heavy but whole. Love, she has learned, never really dies. It just changes shape. As time moves forward, Sandra continues to inspire quietly, not through blockbusters, but through her example. She has taught an entire generation that fame means nothing without compassion, and that vulnerability is not weakness, but power. Through her silence, she has said more than most ever could. Her story is not over yet. Perhaps one day she'll return to film, or publish her writing, or simply continue living away from the public eye. Whatever path she chooses, it will be her own, authentic, brave, and true. Because Sandra Bullock has never belonged to Hollywood. She has always belonged to herself. If life is a movie, hers is not a fairy tale. It's a survival story, one of grit, grace, and unshakable love. It's about falling apart and finding the courage to begin again. It's about a woman who endured tragedy and still learned to smile. Sandra Bullock's tragedy is beyond heartbreaking, but her strength is beyond measure. She is proof that even when everything breaks, the heart can still mend. And as she steps quietly into the next chapter of her life, she does so carrying not sorrow, but the unbreakable beauty of a woman who has lived, loved, and never stopped believing in light.